Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the AM and the PM podcast slash YouTube channel.
Right, we are on YouTube.
Yes, I'm Milena,
I'm Ariel.
and today we will be talking about a movie that we both recently just watched called School for Good and Evil. Is that what it's called? The School?
Yeah, the School for Good and
The
Evil.
School
Yeah,
for
you
Good and
got
Evil. I
it.
should probably know the name of it before we watch it. Um,
Ooh,
But before that, we wanted to really quickly talk about a spoiler-free discussion, really quick, on Black Panther 2, because we both recently saw it. I watched it twice. I know Ariel saw it on Thursday.
yeah,
What are your just kind of like, once again, spoiler-free, so don't worry if you're listening to this
yeah,
and
no,
it.
and
Um,
we're very much not those people.
no, no. What are your like overall thoughts, or what would you like people to know going into watching it?
I think the big thing is I think they did a really good job in honoring Chadwick.
Yeah,
And it wasn't in a way where it was like too much. Like it was like just enough to
yeah,
like not just like hit the heartstrings, but like I was just like it felt like a different movie, but not in
yeah.
like a bad way. You know what it's like it felt like it's like yeah, we were still okay, because in the comics how the second movie happens, that does actually happen like in the comics.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that I was like, okay, I like that I mean, it's interesting that they took that route. It's really hard for me to not say anything spoily, but I'm
Hmm.
saying like it's interesting how what happened in real life reflected what happened in the comics.
Interesting.
So so yeah, I think it was, but I still kind of felt like oh, this is still like Black Panther. Like you
Hmm.
still got what we saw in the first one, like the culture and
Yeah.
like their values and all of that. I thought it was really wonderful. Everyone was
Yes.
acting, and I loved it. Um, I think too, if you are someone who's recently lost somebody,
Hmm.
this movie will definitely touch those parts of you that are maybe still grieving or have grieved. Um, but I think they explore grief in a way that's like it makes sense. Like it's not like this like dramatic. I guess it shows how each person grieved differently. To
Yeah.
me, that's how I kind of took it. Um, like everyone navigated their grief in a different way. But I thought it was really good. Um, I really liked the plot, the storyline, the characters. It didn't feel too comic booky, but it didn't
Hmm.
feel like too unrealistic at the same time. Um, yeah, I liked the whole thing. I really did. I didn't hate it. I really liked it.
Yeah. Someone asked
I
me
don't know
before.
what else to say
No,
besides
no, no.
that
Those are
without
really good
spoiling
thoughts.
anything.
Someone told me, and we can probably revisit once more people have seen it and talk about
Mm-hmm.
like our thoughts on really specific things that would give away
Mm-hmm.
parts of the movie. But someone had asked me, like, do you think it's better than the first one? And I was like, you can't really compare the two.
They
They,
were too different.
yeah, they
Like,
were.
yeah, I don't think there really is like a comparison thing because the
Yeah.
themes of the two movies are really different.
Hmm. I was
Like in a way they're kind of similar, but
Yeah.
like they're different.
Yes, I agree. I think it was a good sequel to the first movie. Like it
Mm-hmm.
followed up the story really
Yeah.
well, but it's hard. It's just
Mm-hmm.
hard to compare, you know?
Yeah.
But I totally agree with what you said about Chad and how they memorialized him in a really beautiful way, but it wasn't this
Mm-hmm.
like tragic,
Like
horrible.
beating it over your head kind of thing.
Yeah, which is what I feel like that would have been beside the point. It also, I feel like, would have kind of capitalized on
Yeah.
grief, which I feel like
Mm-hmm.
would not have been great. So
Mm.
I feel like they did a good job of like we can mourn and we can move forward. And
Yeah.
everybody's trajectory to doing that is different. And that's
Yeah.
okay because grief is like not a pleasant thing at all, and
Mm-mm.
especially with him, like it was so unexpected. And so
Right.
kind of all of a sudden he was so young and he was such a beautiful human being. Oh my God. Like the little
Yeah. No, I remember because I even told you when I was like driving home. like afterwards. I was like, wow, this is making me emotional because I
Yeah.
was just kind of like, dang, like, and I mean, I told you this, but I was just like, he was one so young, but it's like, yo, like cancer really like took him. And I don't, and I was saying this to you, like, I don't necessarily, it's like before his time, but it's just kind of like, dang, like, I think it's like we as the audience can grieve, like, what more could he have done?
Yeah.
You know, like if he had a more life to live, like what else would he have done? Like, and I'm not saying like Black Panther had to be his legacy and whatever, but I'm like, what else would he have done after this? You know?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, so I really liked it, and I knew going into it that the villain was kind of like more of like an anti-hero rather than
mm-hmm.
a villain, which
Yeah.
I like. I like when
Mm-hmm.
villains are complex and you're kind of like with Killmonger, you're like, I understand where you're coming from. What
Yeah.
you are trying to do is not
It's
good.
a little too much.
You need to tone it down, you know? But like the heart of it, I understand
Mm-hmm.
like why
Yeah.
you would feel the way that you're feeling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I really liked the actor who played Namor too. I think we can both agree that he was hot. That's
Yes.
not a spoiler, that's just
Loved.
fact.
As soon as he made his entrance into the film, I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can support this.
And I just think it's cool too that there's like the representation of indigenous people
Yeah,
in this movie.
I think a lot of cultures or specific cultures were like represented that I didn't
Yeah.
expect
Yeah.
to see. I was like, oh my God. Like
Yeah.
I was because you don't like I mean, a lot of people know this already, but I don't want to say it if no one else does. But it's like my culture was like represented. And I
Mhm.
was like, I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
Like as in the way that it was captured and like shown. Like I was like, I've never seen it captured that way.
On such a big scale too, like Marvel is such a
Mm-hmm.
big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It's cool. It was like making space for like more and more people, which I thought was
I
really
thought that, and I think the indigenous thing was really cool too, because I was like, oh, they had to have people that could like actually speak the language. Like,
Mhm.
and I think that's really because you don't hear like a lot of indigenous cultures were like, sorry, history lesson, y'all. But like a lot of indigenous cultures were like wiped out by
Yeah.
like colonization
They
and
were forced to learn English
slavery.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Forced to like forget and not, love their culture anymore.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm like, oh, that's so cool that they like managed to find managed to find people who could like
Yeah.
really tell you how to speak the language. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I
That
agree.
was really nice.
I feel like indigenous people in so many ways are erased from history,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah.
so sad because it's such a long running history, you know?
Thousands of years.
Yes, and we use aspects from their cultures all the time in
Mm-hmm.
like action fantasy kind of
Mm-hmm.
like here's this old Incan relic, but it's like
Right.
it
The
comes back and they
Mayans,
like
all of that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really cool. And there is like because I think Tenoch, I think is how you say his name, the actor who plays Namor,
Mm.
he is Mexican and he also, I think, has indigenous ties to that land. I think.
Oh.
I'm not 100% sure, but I know that there's a lot of that because of like that the
Mm-hmm.
area where like the Mayans lived and whatever. So I thought that was really cool. So we can revisit this when we have more
Yes, after opening
freedom to
weekend
be.
has
Yeah.
passed.
Yeah, because you can't it's like I'm waiting to like go on TikTok and like scroll the hashtag once
Yeah.
more people have seen it. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
the Marvel community is really good about not spoiling things
Yeah.
for other
Unless
people,
you're on Twitter. People
unless
don't
you're
care
on
on
Twitter.
Twitter anymore. Like
No.
people will see the movie and then within hours of seeing it, will just start tweeting about it.
Yes, that's true. But I remember like with Endgame, even on Twitter, people were good about it because I saw Endgame like weeks after it came out and I didn't know Iron
Yeah.
Man died. Like
I
I
mean,
still went into it not knowing.
that was what, how long ago was that?
I think that was
How long ago was Endgame?
2019.
Yeah.
'Cause
I
I was
feel like
graduating from college when it came out, so it was, like, just not a good time. By the time I finally
mm-hmm.
saw it, it wasn't, like, spoiled for me.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like recently though, people have not cared. I guess depending on the movie though. Like
Yeah.
I remember for Spider-Man, I was like, I need to see this movie today because if I because I'm like, I already know. I was like, when it's like really movies people are like are really looking forward to, I'm immediately like, I need to see it like the night it comes out because I already know people on Twitter are gonna start saying stuff and I'm gonna be like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. So, but yes, I think this was a great addition to. I think there have been some misses in this phase of
And I
Marvel.
didn't realize that this marked like the end of phase four.
Is it? I
Yeah,
didn't realize that.
I saw on Twitter or something because I think this is the last movie before next year.
Oh,
So I
well,
was like,
so is Ant-Man not part of this phase?
I guess not. I don't know. Well, technically, I don't think so because I think
That's weird
I
because
can't
usually
remember
they
how
end
they.
phases with like an Avengers movie or something, like
Oh, you're
a
right. Or
collaboration.
maybe this part of the phase is over. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe they're gonna start setting up for another part of the phase. But I saw something where it was like this was like the last movie of phase four, I guess for this year, maybe. I missed
Oh,
that part. Because
I
then
don't
I
know.
guess that would make sense. Because I know that they're trying, this phase is basically starting the Kang like
Yeah,
storyline. So
which I'm
yeah,
super excited about. Also,
I
Jonathan
can't
Majors
wait.
is in his acting bag
Bag. This
right
man is
now.
going to make bank
Right.
for the
He will
next
act
like
after
five
this
years.
because he wants to, not because he
Yeah,
has to. Because we
no.
were sitting there and I hate movies with violence, but we were watching like the trailers for Black Panther and
Mm-hmm.
Creed 3 trailer came on. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this actually looks really good. And I might have to go
Yes.
back and
I'm
suck it
gonna
up and
have to see it. Yeah.
watch them. Because I hate boxing movies. I'm like, you guys are just punching each other.
Really? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And there's
I
bleeding
love,
and there's violence
love.
and I just don't like people hurting each other.
I
Like,
mean, I get that, but my thing is like it's a storyline behind
yeah.
it. You know, you're trying
Yeah.
to root for him. So yeah, I think the third one's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
I liked the Creed movies, so I'm like, I'm gonna definitely see this one.
I mean,
So,
Michael B. Jordan is in it, and really that's all I need to know.
you know,
I will be there.
like Michael B. Jordan is in it. I'm sad. You know, that's
Mhm.
all. Oh, he's the star. I'm sad. He plays a recurring role. I'm sad.
Right.
He's just a side character that
He's
no
in
one
it
really
for
talks
2
to.
seconds.
I'm sad.
Here I am.
Thanks.
You found me. I'm here.
No notes. I'm here.
Okay, anyway, enough about Michael B. Jordan. Let's get on to the movie that we're talking about today.
Yes.
School for Good and Evil. So I'm going to read a quick little plot summary I found. Oh, this is by Netflix, actually, on IMDb.
Mhm.
So, no, like the plot summary is by Netflix.
Oh,
It
I
says,
thought you were saying
no,
that you
it
were
is also
saying,
a
oh,
Netflix
it's by,
movie.
I was like, yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, but like it says like Netflix was the one who wrote this
Hmm.
summary, so that's probably
Okay.
good. So, in the village of Gavelden, two misfits and best friends, Sophie, Sophia Ann Caruso, and Agatha, Sophia Wiley. Oh my god, they have the same name. That's so cute. I didn't realize that. Um, anyway, share the unlikeliest of bonds. Sophie, a golden haired seamstress, dreams of escaping her dreary life to become a princess, while Agatha, with her grim aesthetic and offbeat mother, has the makings of a real witch. One night, under a blood red moon, a powerful force sweeps them away to the School for Good and Evil, where the true stories behind every great fairy tale begin. Yet something is amiss from the start. Sophie is dropped into the School for Evil, run by the glamorous and acid tongued Lady Lesso. I thought her name was Lasso for almost the entire movie. And then I realized it's Lesso with an E. I was like, why would they name her that? Um, and Agatha gets dropped in the School for Good, overseen by the sunny and kind Professor Dovey, Kerry Washington. Oh, I forgot to mention Professor Lesso is Charlize Theron. As if navigating classes with the offspring of the Wicked Witch, Freya Parks, Captain Hook, Earl Cave, and King Arthur, Jamie Flatters, wasn't hard enough. According to the schoolmaster, Lawrence Fishburne, that was so. You know that TikTok audio that's like, Mariana, what are you doing here? That was me when it came out.
No, there are so many celebrities in this movie that I'm like,
Right,
y'all signed up for this, but we'll get into that.
right. Only true love's kiss can change the rules and send the girls to their rightful schools and destiny. But when a dark and dangerous figure, Kit Young of Shadow and Bone, with mysterious
Mhm.
ties to Sophie reemerges and threatens to destroy the school and the world beyond entirely, the only way to a happy ending is to survive their real life fairy tale first. Okay, so what? Yeah, you already have something to
I was gonna
say.
ask you a question. I was gonna ask you like, what were your expectations going in? Like when you were like, okay, I'm gonna watch this movie, what were you thinking what kind of vibe did you think you were gonna get?
So I love fantasy. I love fairy tales. Latin America is the birthplace of like magical realism. Like I'm really
Mm-hmm.
into like anything that is just like remotely in that vein.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who told me like I really liked the movie. I had two friends who told me that they really
Mm-hmm.
liked the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, it should be good. And also the cast, like you have Charlize Theron, you have Kerry Washington, and all these other
Lawrence
great
Fishburne,
people,
Kate
Michelle Yeoh.
Blanchett.
Yes, I was like, Galadriel, why are you here? Like, you don't even get to see her. She's just a voice, a floating pen.
Yeah, and they even had different like comedic actors that I recognized in there. They had Patti LuPone, who's like a Broadway legend. If you did
Oh,
not know,
no, I
she was
didn't.
the bookstore lady. Like
Oh,
she's like a Broadway legend, and I was like,
it was
how did
probably
they get?
That Netflix budget, you
That's
know?
what I'm saying. I was like, Netflix must have offered these people a check
Yeah.
because y'all,
Okay, so let's quickly do like I guess like a spoiler free like quick
sure,
thoughts and then we can go into
okay.
like specifics. So
Hmm.
what would you tell people if they asked you, what'd you think of that movie? What would you respond?
You want me to give like my rating?
Sure. Like
Okay.
what would you say like about the overall movie?
I would say don't go in there expecting quality. Like, just go in there thinking, like, because I was like, oh, this is a kid's movie. That's what I thought that movie was. Like, I was like, oh, this is a kid's movie.
I thought so too, and then they said a cuss word and I was
And
like,
then I
"Wait."
was like, oh, wait, this isn't a kid's movie.
No.
Okay. So, like, yeah, I wouldn't go in with any expectations. I wouldn't be like, oh, well, these amazing actors are in it, so it must be good. I would not assume, I would tell someone, don't assume that.
Mhm.
Just watch the movie and let it you decide, because
Yeah.
I didn't go in there with much expectations because I thought it was genuinely like, oh, it's just like a Netflix fantasy kids movie, like, because the actress that plays Agatha is in High School Musical, the
Yeah.
musical, the series, which I've watched. It's very campy, very funny, but I love it. um and so I'm like, oh, this is gonna be light stuff,
Mhm.
and I mean, I thought, okay, well, Charlize Theron's in it, Kerry Washington. Like, I love Charlize Theron. I don't know why, but I just love
She's
her.
amazing.
She
That's
just
why.
gives off this like vibe that I'm
She's
just like,
so yes, she has such like a
yeah,
powerful like everything
yes.
she says. She's kind of like the female equivalent of like Lee Pace, you know?
I like that.
That's how I
Yes.
feel about her.
Yes.
So,
She commands the
yes.
room. I
Yes.
love it.
Mhm.
So I was like, this, because she's a great actress. Like, I was just like, oh, like Michelle Yeoh's in this. Like, oh, this is gonna, I was like, okay. I did not see Lawrence Fishburne coming, but I was like, okay, all right. We got like Oscar nominated people in here. This is
Right.
gonna be great. No, that's that's not what happened. So yeah, basically, I would not go in there with any
Yeah.
expectations. I would just take the movie for what it is. And yeah, without saying any spoilers. That's all I can really
No, and
say.
I would totally agree with you.
I
I think
gave it
it was
a
a
6
huge
out of 10.
miss. I wouldn't even give it that high out of 10. I would
I know.
give it
I mean, that's why I said, when I told you my rating after we talked about it, I was like, that's being gracious. Then that's
yeah.
only because of Charlize, because that was garbage.
I might give it a 3.5. Like when it ended, I literally texted you like I think that was one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yep.
Like
Hmm.
I it genuinely and it was so long too.
Yeah. I
And
didn't. Yeah.
I almost feel like it would have been better if they had made it a kids movie and if they had gone the kid route because it was just this
Hmm.
weird like you're trying really hard to feel like relatable to adults, but it doesn't feel that way. The script sucks. The
Oh
plot
my
was like
God.
all over the place. There were some questionable things that we'll talk about in the
Oh my God.
spoiler
Yes.
inclusive setting. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I just did it just really wasn't good because I know that they can do good like kid fantasy stuff. Have you ever seen the
Hmm.
show Troll Hunters?
No.
It's a cartoon, an excellent show. I started watching it
Wow.
with my little kid cousin at the time when it came out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I know you guys have it in you, but it just felt like they were trying too hard to be too many different things and it didn't work.
Yes. I also saw though when I went on Wikipedia at one point because I was like, I need to understand because it's a book series. You know, it's a 6 book series
Yeah,
that
I
it's
heard.
based off of.
Are the
And
books
so
good?
I have no idea. I've never read them.
Okay.
But I did see that this movie was written and produced by 2 men. So I was like, this kind of tracks. I
Hmm.
was like, 2 grown men trying to write like teenagers. That's why that's partial. I feel like that's partially why the script was like a little weird and
It
just like not really. I feel like it just wasn't smooth. Like I was just kind of like, I didn't really understand. I think for me, I was like, I don't feel these characters enough.
right,
Like, why should I be rooting for Sophie?
right.
Like, what's Agatha's deal? Like it's like we get like it's very surfacey. Like we
Hmm.
got very surface level characters where it's just kind of like they were also very one dimensional to me as
Yes.
well. So I was just kind of like, okay, so Sophie's thing is like I'm not gonna spoil because that's what the synopsis says. She's like she lives in this town where she wants to be free. She wants to go out, see the world. Aggie is like the I guess you could say she's not like other girls trope. Like she's just kind of very much like
They say she's a witch, but I
rebellious.
don't ever see
They
her
don't
do
ever
anything witchy.
it's like a rumor, I guess. Like because I don't again, we're not in the spoiler part, but it's like they basically she's like teased for it. Like
Yeah.
she says like people call her that like in the movie like
I'm
cuz
like,
but she
but
doesn't
why?
know.
Can you explain to us why they call you
Yeah,
that?
it's like we don't get enough backstory. We're
Hmm.
just kind of thrown. And sometimes people stories do that, or like shows will do that. Shows or movies will do that. Well, they throw you into the lives of the person without their backstory, but you can still kind of like get everything when
Yeah.
there's enough detail and depth and like storyline for you to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't really get that from this.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into the spoiler section that
Because
we can
there's just
discuss.
we gotta go into the details for
So
this
if you
one.
haven't seen it and you don't want to know, get out
Yeah,
immediately.
just
Fine.
end it now. Go see Black Panther 2. We love y'all.
Yeah. And I mean, if you don't want to watch this movie and you want to be it to be spoiled, honestly, that's fine too. Um,
Yeah.
so okay, let's talk about the very beginning. So there are these twins, right? Both played by Kit Young. Also,
Mm-hmm.
I texted you this that I was like, how am I? It's like the Benedict Cumberbatch like effect where I'm like
Mm-hmm.
into one of them, but I'm not into the other, and I am aware that they are the same person. But
Yeah.
it's like the way that he's dressed and the way that he is acting. This is the good one, which
Yes.
is usually the opposite for me. But
No, because I genuinely at first I was like, I feel like you're gonna like the evil one. But then you said the nerdy one, and I said, okay, I was right
no,
the
no, no.
second
It was like the
time.
hair. I'm not really into like bald men. Like, or anything that I consider bald, like way too close cut. Like when men
Mm-hmm,
cut off their
mm-hmm.
curls, I'm always like, why would you do?
Right.
Why would you? So, and when I reference the Benedict Cumberbatch effect, it's because I think Benedict Cumberbatch in real life is very like normal, very fine, standard guy. But as Doctor Strange, like this man is hot, and I don't know who it is. Anyway, what do you think about this concept? Because this is like basic foundational something that we have to accept that
Mhm.
these two brothers at I don't know the beginning of time or something
Yeah.
they needed good and evil to exist in a perfect balance, and that's why they set up these schools so that good and evil could like balance each other out. Like what do you
Mhm.
I don't know if that's like a vague question, but what did you think of that like lore aspect of it?
When you just hearing you kind of say it, I'm kind of my first thought was like, it doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that. I mean, I get because it's fantasy, but I'm like, I don't see how realistic that is. I don't think because we even see it in the school. It's like one still wants to be better than the other. It's not like they just live in harmony and peace with each other and just like, oh,
Yeah.
you're good and you're evil. We're just in our respective schools. We just do whatever. They're in competition with each other the entire time.
Yeah.
Like Kerry Washington's character brings up the fact that they beat the evil school like for the last like 400 years or something. Like they're always in competition with each other. It's kind of like
Yeah.
They're each side wants to be number one, whether they're in the same place or not. Like it's like there's not really like a, you can say it's a balance because they're separate from each other, I
Yeah.
guess. But like they still hate each other. There's not really any peace. It's just, it's healthy competition is how they try to advertise it to us when you first kind of see the school. But then it's like, no, like I think what was okay, I would say the one thing that I took that I thought was like good about the movie was kind of like you got to see like that the good school wasn't really as good
No, they were so
as
mean. They were all
like
so
there's
mean to
like,
each
oh,
other.
good really isn't that good. Like it's like you find out that they literally have children enslaved for
Yeah.
like centuries because they failed in the school. That whole grading system, wild, by the
Right.
way. And so it's like you have them enslaved. I'm like, just send them back home. But no, they get transformed into creatures or things to serve the school. And I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah.
So it's like there wasn't, I don't think that concept of like, let's just have good and evil be in the same place, but we're going to balance it out by separating them.
Yeah.
Because, like, at the end of the day, evil's going to evil, good's going to good. Like,
Right.
there's good and evil in the world. You can't really separate them. You're going to interact at some point.
Yeah.
And
I
I
also
think,
oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was saying, because then you mean it shows when like they have that whole battle, like it's like everything was just culminating anyway to get to that big fight.
Yes, which is kind of leads into what I was going to say, which is I don't think good and evil can or should coexist. I
Hmm.
don't. I think one is the antithesis to the other. And even when they
Hmm.
were like, "Oh, these brothers agreed to operate in balance," I was like, "The evil one is going to kill the good one." I just know it. Like I can
There's
just this is Cain and
what,
Abel. Like this is
right?
what's going
No,
on.
legit, literally.
Um,
Because what?
so I'm kind of like there are things that I feel like should not coexist.
Hmm.
And I think evil is something we shouldn't be like, yes, that can exist among us. But I do think I agree with what you said too, that like I also don't think anybody's like 100% good or 100% bad. So I
Yeah.
like that that's what it felt like the um movie was kind of trying to
Hmm.
allude to, like that to every person that you label as bad, there's some kind of backstory, or there might be some, even if it's like this big
Hmm.
beside them.
Hmm.
And to the person that you might think is really good, they have some flaws too. But then
Yeah.
I think I don't know, it's the labeling of it as like evil that I'm kind of like, I don't know if I can accept that. Like on a moral level, I'm kind of like, I don't know that I fully agree.
Right. Just living as an evil person, you mean? like,
Yeah,
like just being like, yeah, these are the really bad parts of me, and therefore this is who I am.
yeah. And
And so I'm just gonna live like that forever.
as like the good brother too, I don't know how he would be like, yeah, that's fine. And also
Right.
why you would want the balance to end up that way, because in classic fairy tales, evil always loses. So I'm like,
Hmm.
why would you want that? Why would you
Right.
want to be evil and lose all the time? Like I don't even that
Right.
doesn't
You
sound
never
fun.
win.
I feel like I don't know, I might be getting a little nitpicky, but I feel like it would have been more interesting to me if there had been some kind of curse where it was like one was cursed to be
Mm,
evil and the other
yeah.
one was like because of something they did, some beauty
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
I helped the person and you didn't, so now you're cursed. That would have been more
Yeah.
interesting to me than them choosing I'm gonna be good and you're gonna be evil. That felt so like dumb to me,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm. I get what you mean. And I think too, we didn't get enough backstory on them either for
Right.
me to be like, because then what if it was kind of thing where it's like he was born good and he was born evil kind of thing, and maybe that's why they were so strongly opposing each other all the time. Like it's
Yeah,
just kind of like this has always kind of been their dynamic.
and they're cool with each other.
Um, yeah, it's like
Which I
they
don't
accept
get.
that. Yeah, it's like, oh, you're good and you're evil, and like I just, and kind of like you're saying, like, because the good one's trying to convince the evil, and like, no, this is how we have to keep it, like, and then the evil one's like, no, let's fight with blood magic. And I'm like,
And then
wait,
also, I was like, you can't just introduce this without explaining it. Because in my head, I'm like, why is blood magic working on his brother? Blood magic is not supposed to work on people you're biologically related to.
mm-hmm.
that to me, I was like,
You know that I didn't know that. I was like fantasy 101. Thank you so much.
I'm like, have you ever watched Once Upon a Time? When they walk through someone's blood magic curse, it was like the way that Once Upon a Time would reveal like we're
Hmm.
related. It's like, how did you get through my blood magic? And it's like, I'm your sister. And you're like, oh my god. But yeah, that's just nitpicky, I guess. But yeah,
Hmm.
so okay. So we get into the present and we have Sophie and we have what's her name? Agatha,
Agatha, but she calls her Aggie.
Aggie. She's a witch question mark. And
Right.
Sophie's like, I need to get out of this town, which is always the story. I need to get out of
Hmm.
town. So she writes a
Very
letter.
much Belle from Beauty and the
Yes.
Beast.
She writes a letter, she puts it in a tree. It's like the wishing tree or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, something like that.
And then a demon comes and takes her in the middle of the night.
And that's what I didn't. Okay, I was
Thoughts?
like, okay, I didn't understand that because I was like, okay, I understand it's a school of good and evil, but I'm like, y'all couldn't send like a fairy or something. I mean, the fairies at the good school were a little scary too, but like, y'all couldn't send like what if I want to go to a school? Why would you send that to bring me to the school? Why not bring like a fantastical beast? Like, I don't know. What
A
do you call them?
centaur.
Yeah, or like
Yeah.
the eagle bird things that just swoop you away.
Yeah.
You know, one of those. Like, I just don't. Why a demon?
Right.
Like, and it wasn't even like, I guess, like a cool looking demon. Like, you're scary. You're a cloud figure with red eyes
Right.
in the woods,
With a
the
smile.
dark woods.
Smiling and giggling.
What? I was
Yeah.
like, no.
And she was happy about it too. That's when I was like, is she evil? Because like Aggie is like, that's not a good thing. And she's like, no, this is great. I'm like, you're being dragged into the woods by a demon. And you're like,
Like nothing about that would convince me that I'm going somewhere good.
no. So I feel like also when we get to the school of who gets dropped off first, it's Sophie that gets dropped at the school of evil first, right? And then Aggie goes to the school.
Yes. Hmm.
And so that actually, I want to hear your thoughts. Like them, like their entrances into their respective schools. What were like the vibes or your thoughts that you got from that? Like
Um,
Sophie being in the water and Aggie getting dropped to the fairies.
yeah, I think I was a little one, I think I was a little confused on how they chose them to go to their respective schools because one, it's not like Sophie wrote that her and Aggie should go to the school. So how did they just take both of them? Why not just leave the other? If that makes sense. Like it's like she didn't apply, but
Yeah,
she somehow got dragged into it.
I think it's because she was
But
trying to save Sophie, so she was like holding on. So it ended up taking
um,
both of them.
okay, I
Yeah.
guess. But um, I don't know. I guess for the plot of the story, it was fine for them to split them. I kind of wanted it to switch though.
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but because it's like I don't know. Yeah, again, we didn't really get much of their storylines for us to be like, oh, that makes sense for each of them to go
Yeah.
to their respective schools. And I guess sure that's the point because Sophie convinces herself that she's good and that she's not supposed to be in the evil school up
Hmm.
until a point. Um, but
Can I say though, I never believed that she was good because when she was asked to describe like what's good, the stuff she named was like dumb. It was like castles and princesses and horses and ball
mm,
gowns. And I was like, so the aesthetic of royalty is what you think of when you
mm-hmm,
think goodness. You don't know
yeah,
what goodness is, clearly. That's why you got dropped from
yeah.
school. So I don't know why you're confused. I'm not
I didn't
confused.
even see that. That's a really good observation. I literally was like, this girl, she was just annoying to me.
It was.
I was like, can you just accept your fate at this point, girl? Like, I'm sorry. They clearly got some magic thing that understands you better than you do. So just settle in. This is where you're at. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I was just kind of like, I mean, I guess I think it was really more like their responses to being dropped off at their respective schools. It was just kind of like, again, Agatha's response is just very like again, like I'm not like other girls vibe. It was just very like
Yeah.
I know she just wanted to get Sophie and like save her, but like because it's not, I don't know. Agatha like wouldn't accept that she was good. And I was just like, what about you says that you're bad? You
Right.
know? Like I was just confused about that. Or like, I don't know. But yeah, I was just, I don't know. I don't really have much thoughts on
No, I
their drop
agree.
off.
I was confused as well because I'm like, all I've seen of you so far is you doing like selfless things to help your friend. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
really sure why you think that, other than people in town calling you a witch, which we've gotten no backstory for anyway. So I'm kind of like, that
Only
doesn't matter.
that her because her mom was weird. Like it, there was not
Well,
really
a lot of people have
anything
weird
else.
moms. That doesn't mean
Right.
they're witches.
It's like her
So,
mom was like weird, so they thought like that she was a witch or something, and I was just like, okay.
feels like a reach. Yeah. Um, oh my gosh, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, we have that weird moment too where they're at the ball and what's that guy's name? Tedros? Teddy? Whatever his
Yeah,
name
I
is.
think it's Tedros or something like
Something
that.
like that.
I kept thinking they were saying Tetros at one point because they kept saying it like that. And then when I looked it up, I was like, oh, it's Tedros, not Tetros. It's Tedros.
Yeah, I think I figured out it was a D like halfway through because they started calling him Teddy, and I was like, ah,
Right.
got it.
Because some
Um,
people were definitely saying it with a T, and I was like, I don't think that's his name.
maybe I didn't know. Sometimes that happens in movies where you can tell that they didn't unanimously agree on how to pronounce a name. And
Mm-hmm.
it's in this is a tangent, but Leonardo DiCaprio in Romeo and Juliet, the modern version, he keeps
Mm-hmm.
calling Mercutio with a like an ooh sound. And every
Mm.
time I watch it, it grates at my soul. So I'm like, who did not come in and be like, hey, Leo, it's Mercutio. Because everybody else says it that way. Anyway, that's not the point.
Yeah.
Back to the point. Um,
Yeah.
so we have this moment where like that guy comes in. It's this whole, oh my God, it's so that whole scene where all the guys come in, I just was so icky to me. And they have they're not even doing anything like impressive. They just have their swords and they're like,
Yeah, it's like choreography. I was
yeah, and
like,
then and
oh,
then Tedros
okay.
comes in, he like flies down like Tinkerbell from the ceiling and like kills
With like a
them.
rope.
Yeah, with like a rope, and I was like, I am not entertained. Um,
Right. All the
and-
girls are like, oh my
right.
God.
And then there's that moment where he's like, he goes to throw his rose, but he looks back at Sophie. And when he does that, he accidentally throws his rose like haphazardly. And it
Mm-hmm.
lands in Agatha's app,
Lap.
wow, in Agatha's lap.
Mm-hmm.
um, and she gives him this like really cringy speech about like, I bet you threw that rose at me because you think I'm just a normal girl and I don't like belong here and I'm not supposed to be here and blah blah blah. And I was like,
Yeah.
girl, he
Like
literally
you
was
just
not looking. That's the reason that the rose landed in your lap. He just threw it without looking, and it happened to land in your lap.
also you just got here. He
Right,
doesn't even know you.
right.
Like, what?
It was just so. It was so like I was like, they're making her so like pick me right now, and I
Yeah.
really hate it.
I really didn't like it. I was like, can we do something else with her character? Yeah.
I also
It
feel
was
like the
just
chemistry between them was very unbelievable. So at the end of the movie, when he was like, "I
yes.
love you," and I was like, "This is really the worst time for you to be saying
Literally,
that."
I was just like, this doesn't make sense to me. But apparently in the books, like they're together, they're each other's like soulmates or whatever. And I'm like, you could have
Right.
fooled me because I had no idea.
Well, let's talk about the idea of like love in this movie because that comes up a
Mm,
lot. It's this idea of
yeah.
like this
True
very
love. Yeah.
tropey, cliche. The only way that you can switch schools is if you have true love's kiss because evil could never have love or true love.
Right. Right.
So you have to have true love's kiss so that you can relocate. Like
Switch. Yeah.
yeah, what were your thoughts on that?
Dumb.
Okay, can you say more?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's just my first initial like, oh, that's dumb. But yeah, I think at one point I had to have blinked out because I was like, oh, we're in a tournament right now. Oh, okay. So I was just like, so you have to battle for it? Like, okay. I mean, is this necessary? Do we have to? Like, what, I guess, like, what does that prove? Like, that, I don't know. Like, it was just like Teddy had to prove, I don't know. I was just like, what are we trying to prove here?
And
Like,
the school is constantly trying to kill their students also, which I'm like, why are
yeah.
we doing this?
And
Um,
like, I know like the evil school is like about it because they're just like, oh no, it's fine. Death is so cool. And I'm like, this is dumb.
right. It just
But
felt
yeah,
like
I
they were
don't,
pulling rules out of nowhere. I get what you're saying. It's like,
yeah, it's just kind of like, okay, so then like if it doesn't work, then it's like, oh, then you guys really weren't in love. And so
yeah,
therefore you're supposed to be evil and you're still supposed to be good. Like I didn't really, I was like, okay. So yeah, like I'm like, okay, so like what? So that would be it? Like, then what if he did rescue her and then that was it? The movie would be over? Like I don't get it. I
and I feel like they kept bringing up True Love and True Love's Kiss because they were trying to like make fun of it, like it was like satirical, but it wasn't
yeah,
done well because I was like,
no.
but still the story is hinging on this idea of True Love's Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
make it seem like it's dumb, but also that's the story that you're telling. So I'm
Right.
like, and it's not like convincing to, I don't know, just the whole thing just felt like very cringy, like her trying to set
Mm-hmm.
up Sophie and Teddy and then Teddy falling for
Oh,
her. And there was just no chemistry in with any of the parties.
either
So I just
one.
didn't
Either one.
care.
Also, speaking of cringe, I know we haven't gotten to this part yet,
Go ahead.
but when Sophie like I guess like accepts that she's evil and she that whole opening scene
No, let's talk
where
about that. Let's skip there now.
and she walks into the school and does that walk, I was like, that was when I was like, oh, this movie's bad. I was like, what are we doing right now? Like I was like, oh, they're genuinely trying to make her seem like she's confident, like she's that girl. And I'm like, this is awful.
Hmm.
Like she's walking in slow-mo and it's not filming in slow-mo. That's what was weird to me. Like she's walking slow, but I'm like, she's not slowed down though. Like she's just in real time walking this slow. And I'm like, this is awful. I was
Yeah.
like, this is when I was like, oh, this is starting to go down. Like it was already getting there, but I'm like, oh, this is where we start to spiral down because this is terrible.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like consistent. Like she didn't even do anything important as like an evil person. She just got the people
She
in her
got a
school.
haircut.
She got a haircut. She got popular. But then that was really it. Because as soon as Aggie was like, "You're not evil," she was like, "You're right. I'm not." And then, well, okay, I feel like I'm confusing the timeline a little bit, but there's also another part that I like kind of hated was that whole fight at the ball, which my sister was like, just because they're evil doesn't mean that they have to be bad dancers, because they were literally
Yes.
they were dancing like doing like jumping jacks. I'm like, what is happening
Like
right
y'all
now?
don't have rhythm? I don't
So
understand.
much is going on. Why do you look like you're having a seizure right now on the
Like
dance
what?
floor? I'm like, have you ever seen Descendants? Because the evil people in that movie sing and dance.
Fire.
They're so cool and so
Choreography
cute.
on
Kenny
point.
Ortega did what he had to do.
Did what he had
Did
to
what he had to
do.
do. So, I that's another thing. I feel like this movie was trying really hard to be Descendants and failed, which is funny because that's
Mm,
like a Disney original like dumb
right.
movie, and this is like a Netflix budget, and it just flopped.
Yeah, interesting. That's an interesting point.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
but
very.
that scene where
Oh, sorry. That
go
just
ahead.
reminded me. That's the other thing I didn't really like about how they portrayed the school of evil because everyone was like a caricature.
Mm-hmm.
It was like everyone was just so like, oh, it just felt so cartoony. Like everyone's like laughing at like terrible things and like getting excited about like torture. And I'm like, this is so stupid.
Yeah,
Like, I'm like, that, okay. I mean, I get it. Sure. It's based on like, I think it's not children's book, I guess, but like, I'm like, this is so just like cartoony and I just can't take it seriously.
yeah, and I love like cartoons. Like I've seen fantasy
Mm-hmm.
cartoons be done well. Like once again, Troll Hunters or that movie with Tom Holland that he's blue. Do you know what I'm talking about? The one where he's trying to find his
Yes,
dad.
onward.
Onward. That
That
movie
was
is
such a
great.
good.
That's a
Such
great
a good
fantasy
movie.
movie.
That
It's a
was a
great movie
really
for
good one.
kids. It's a great movie for adults. And it
And there were scenes that I was like, y'all better preach to me,
I was
okay?
crying. I was really real life IRL cry. I should rewatch that actually because I think I've only seen that movie once. But those are just
Mm,
like few examples of times when like kids fantasy can be done well. This was just
yeah.
like cringy. And it's
Like
so sad because it's like what you said, there are these fantastic actors and actresses that you're just like wasting with this horrible script
like
and plot holes.
like there were scenes where with Kerry Washington and I was like, I can't. Like I like I was like her performance just was really bad to me. Like I was just like, I can't do this. Like it was like I was watching Olivia Pope trying to be a fairy and it just wasn't
And she was
it wasn't
evil.
working.
She was never believably good, ever, from the very
No.
beginning.
I was like,
So,
I'm sorry, they should have chosen somebody else. I just, that's my honest opinion. And I mean, even Charlize's character like tried, like she tried, I could see they were trying to do whatever they could with what they were given.
mm-hmm.
But I was like, this still is just not. Charlize's looks though, I was like, I like this look on her.
Killing.
But I was like, everything else, I was like, why?
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree. And then, so the scene that I'm talking about, the one at the ball where they were dancing badly, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
like good attack. So there's this whole, they keep introducing ideas or like pieces to the lore that's like, we didn't already establish this, so now I'm following a whole new thread where it was like, good never attacks. It only
Yeah.
defends. So if you guys attack us, that makes you evil. You will automatically transform
Mm-hmm.
into being evil, which I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't, I don't, once again, you didn't introduce that before. And I also I don't feel like that's true. Another thing that this movie kind of establishes, I mean, maybe they change it, but this idea that like evil is ugly and good is pretty, I'm
Yeah.
like, I know that this is not true because it's because evil can be so attractive
Mm-hmm.
that brings people into it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
this feels very like 1930s
Mm-hmm.
logic. That's what I was gonna say like a while ago. This movie feels like it's from 20 years ago and not now, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that they were trying to like defy those stereotypes, it
Yeah,
still fell into a lot of it. A lot of that
I would
like
agree.
dumb early 2000s kind of like
Yeah.
stuff.
It just didn't give. Just didn't give what it was supposed to give. I
No.
was just like, I just don't. Yeah, because even she like cast the spell to turn them evil, I guess. She like all she does is change their clothes. So I was like, I
And she
don't
just
understand.
unoldifys herself. She becomes normal
She just,
again.
yeah, she changes them from like wearing colors to black. And she's like, so now you guys are evil. And I'm like, what? What?
Which is
I
like,
don't
sorry, go ahead.
know. I was just saying, like, I was just like, that just doesn't make sense. So then now it's like, well, we're wearing all black now. So that means we can fight you guys. And so now it's like, we don't know who's good and who's evil anymore.
Hmm.
Which I guess, sure, maybe that was the point, but it's like that was dumb to me. I was like, I don't, you just changed their clothes. Like it wasn't like she did the spell and they all of a sudden had like a character difference and
Yeah.
they were suddenly evil. It was like, no, we just wear black now, just like you.
And they had like scars on their face or something
Yeah.
like that. I'm like,
And I was like, okay.
this is kind of dumb. And another thing too, we've been talking about this in my multicultural class, is this like historical association of like darkness with evil and like
Mm-hmm.
lightness with good and how
Mm-hmm.
racist that is. That is, it's like if you, and I'm not saying that the movie intended for it to be, but I think that that's
Right.
like implied in everything. It's like, oh, it's dark,
Mm-hmm.
it's black,
Mm-hmm.
it's evil. And it's like,
Yeah.
why are we making that association? Like,
Right. Shouldn't it be more about like your character? Like
yeah,
it's really more about your character than what you look like.
right.
But
So I'm kind
that's
of
a whole
like,
nother.
mm, not a fan. That's why in Rings of Power there are these people who like show up wearing white and they're like very clearly evil, and I'm like, I like it. Like I
Hmm.
like this like reversal
Yeah.
of And we need to talk about Rings of Power at some time. I'm in the middle of that show. But I just think that's interesting, and I've been more mindful, like, of that in shows and, like,
Mhm.
life recently.
Yeah. I mean, I even saw on TikTok a lot of people brought up that, like, the whole transformation of Sophie was, like, anti-Semitic in some aspects
How?
with, like, I guess, like, the trope of, like, the old, like, witch hag thing has
Interesting.
stemmed from that with, like, how her
Oh,
nose looks, notice how her nose got, like, bigger
that was the
and,
first
like,
thing.
yeah, and more, like, crooked and then, like, whatever. So I guess, like, some people I saw that on, like, TikTok where people are like, yeah, that's, like, rooted in that in some aspect. I don't know the full
Interesting.
thing, but I was like, interesting.
That is
But
interesting.
because I was like, I don't understand the point of her turning into this old lady. And then all of a sudden now she's pretty. Like, I was just like, what was the point? What was the point of her doing that whole thing? And then it's like, just kidding. I can just change back now.
Yeah. I,
I didn't get that.
no, it's true. When her nose started to get bigger, I was like, I feel kind
Like,
of offended
what?
by that because I have kind of a bigger nose. Like, what's wrong with having a bigger nose? Like,
Right.
like this feels like very, um, I don't know, like,
Because I was like, maybe the evil is like draining her of like her
pettiness.
youth or something that would like make sense to like why she was transforming. And then maybe it's like, oh, then they do like a spell to transform her back, like the good, like Agatha. I thought like Aggie might have to do like a good spell and then that makes her come back, but that's not what happened. She just changed herself. So I was like, I don't understand the point of that. What was the
Yeah,
point?
it was dumb, and I didn't really fully understand why they were fighting. Because oh, okay, let's weave in a different thread too. Kate Younger's character, whatever his name is,
Rafal.
Rafal. Yes, I couldn't understand what they were saying for half of the time.
Me neither. I was like, what is
Him.
this man's name? Which is partially why I had to look it up on Wikipedia because I was like, I don't know who we're talking about.
Yeah. So he is like haunting her, basically.
Yeah, from
She
like the beginning.
she just acts way too calmly every time he appears. Because if I was looking at myself in a mirror and a man appeared over my shoulder, I wouldn't be like, "What are you doing here?" I'd be like, "The blood of Jesus."
Right. Right.
My soul would ascend immediately. So anyway,
Literally.
so he's like haunting her, which he shouldn't be because we think he's dead at the beginning of the movie. And that's what it
Hmm.
took me a bit to realize that like Lawrence Fishburne was supposed to be his character because I was literally like, what is your point? What is the point of you?
Right, because he was still like the headmaster,
Yeah.
but he was supposed to be the good one. But I was
Yeah.
like, okay. He didn't even really play much of a part in the movie, to be
No.
honest.
No, he didn't. He was just there for vibes and for a check.
Because you would think with especially with how like the plot twist happened, like he would be a little more involved, you
Yeah.
know?
Like he would
But he
change from him to like into his younger.
yeah, or like make it like a thing where like the audience knows, but they don't. I would have liked that
Yeah.
at least if it was like they show him being his younger self and then it's like they show the headmaster in his room or something and it transforms into Lawrence Fishburne. We're like, oh,
Looks
okay,
at
got
himself in the
it.
mirror and he sees something like that. Yeah.
Right. Anyway.
Yes, yeah. So he's like following her and is basically like, I've chosen you. You're like the chosen one or whatever. And she's like, oh, I've always wanted to be chosen, you know? And it's just this like weird thing where she's just kind of like, she doesn't even question, really, should I help this guy? She's just like, sure, I'll start a civil war within this school for you, man. I do not know. Even though I'm
Know
trying to prove
nothing
that I'm
about.
good.
Right. Because even in that scene where she's fighting the other girl and the bees come in, like she summons the bees, which I don't even know how she did that because it didn't really show how she did it. She just kind of screamed and then the bees flew through the window. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
And then he was covered in
Um,
them, and then
and
he
he
left.
was covered in them. So I was like, so how I don't understand how
Like,
this
aren't you supposed to be dead? Aren't you supposed to make people think you're dead?
yeah, and that's why like even Charlize's character is like, oh my God, like Rafal, which again, we'll get into questionable things, but
Mhm.
I was like, wait, what? What are we okay? But no one's like phased.
Yeah.
Like you would think like people would be like, oh my God, that's Rafal. That's the guy that died centuries ago. That's who
Mhm.
everyone talks about all the time.
Yeah.
No, no reaction. Everyone's just like, ooh, Sophie summoned this man covered in bees.
Right.
Next scene. Like, what?
Yeah, all the people in both schools felt very, very, like you said, caricature one-dimensional, just like
Yeah.
props to the main character.
And
Um,
even like when Aggie sees that her friend got transformed into the creature and
mhm,
like, Teddy comes in, kills him or whatever, and she's just like, what are y'all running here? And like Kerry Washington just like goes off on her about like why she just won't accept she's in the good school. And I'm like, we're missing. Hold
you're
on.
distracting me from the
You just
point.
a student was just murdered.
Right.
A student just killed another student because it wasn't like he was a random creature. This is a child that was transformed into a creature who just died. And
Right.
you're mad because she doesn't want to do cute tea parties.
Right. And this
What?
was not long after a different student was freed from enslavement in the lake for
Like,
400 years because she failed. I'm like,
like, no one's seeing the problem.
not
Okay.
good, guys. This is not great. So yeah, I just feel like I really didn't care. I didn't care about I kept forgetting Teddy was in a relationship with that girl. He kept forgetting he was in a
Yeah.
relationship with that girl. Like none of it felt like tied. Even
Mm-mm.
Aggie and Sophie's relationship
Didn't feel like a friendship to me
didn't feel like
either.
a friendship to me either. Yeah. So it's like I don't know. It just felt like Sophie was like, "No, you don't get it. I'm just gonna do whatever I want." And then I'm like, Aggie is literally doing everything she possibly can to help you. You ungrateful person.
Literally, Aggie gets bullied on a daily basis. She could be home helping her mom, and she left her mom to help you. And all you want to do is wear ball gowns. That's all you want to do. You
Different.
just want to wear ball gowns.
Yeah. So, okay, let's discuss the Rafal and Sophie of it all because you and I had
What
very
in the
similar
world?
reactions.
Yeah.
Thought.
First of all, what in the world was that? I
Mhm.
was like, I'm sorry. When he like, fully became his whatever self and then was like, you were the one and this is our true love. And I was like, wait,
Where
she's
did
a
it come
child.
from?
Like
Yeah,
immediately I was like, wait a second. I was like, she's like, it would be one thing if she was like, I guess 18 and like kind of an adult. Like this was like a college, not like a high school type
right.
vibe. But I was like, no, she's a kid. I was like, hold on, what are we doing here? And then like they kissed, and I was immediately like I was just on the couch, like, I don't like this. I was
Yeah.
like, no,
And
sorry.
it doesn't matter that he's in like a younger person's body. He's like
No, he's still
hundreds of
very
years
much an
old.
adult.
Yes, he was just Lawrence Fishburne. Imagine Lawrence
Right.
Fishburne kissing her. Right.
Like,
That's what's happening. So,
but even if he was 4,000 years old, he was still very much in an adult body.
yeah.
They weren't kids running this school. They were
Yeah.
adults. So I was like, this is I was like pedophilia. I was like, what's going on right now? I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, I can't. And just the kiss was like too aggressive, and I was just like, I don't want this. Please put this movie in the garbage. I can't.
Yeah. It just felt like too much. It didn't make any sense because they hadn't
None.
had any moments where they were even like building chemistry. Not that I would want them to, because once again,
Right.
pedophilia, ew.
Right.
Um,
Well, I was
but
giving very much grooming.
it
Like,
was, yeah. And he was like, "You're my true love," and she was like, "Yeah." And they kissed, and I'm like, okay, what happened to the true aspect of true love? How can this possibly be true love? He's
right.
using her. She doesn't know him. How could they be each other's true? Because it worked.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't.
Was it true just because they both were evil? Is that what they were trying to convey? Like it worked. I was like, then that could have worked with anybody.
Right, anybody. I'm sure people would
That's
just
why that's why
also,
Charlize Theron's character was still in love with him.
which ew.
Because again, why are we making this a plot point? this, I was like, so she wasn't the only student he did this to?
Right.
I was like, wait a minute. Because Charlize is like my love. And I'm like, what? And then you learn that she was the girl, because then they talk about Charlize's character. They like revealed that she was this girl that was kidnapped from the town that Sophie and Agatha are from.
Yeah.
And she was the one that they talked about that like had gone missing and they never heard from her again. And she's just like, yeah, and like he was like my true love. And I was like, but you were a child. Hold on. We're not talking about real details here.
Right.
What?
Yeah, and
I was
I
like,
understand that he's like evil and he's supposed to be evil, but I still didn't like it. Like it just felt
no.
very, very tone deaf for so many reasons. It's like
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the situation, that's not okay to
No.
not. Like
No.
you're at least age them up. At least make her
That's
like
what I was, that's what I said. I'm
21
like,
or
if they were at
22.
least like adults and this was like a university type thing, okay. Okay, maybe I can give it to
I'm
you.
like,
But
guys,
she's
please,
a literal child.
please stop romanticizing relationships between children and adults. Please, I'm literally begging. Like even I love like the Vampire Diaries, but even stuff like that, I'm kind of like, oh, this is actually like not. There's a lot about this that's like not okay. Like this,
Mm-hmm.
Elena is like 16, like
Yeah.
that's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
So I just if you really want them to be in love with someone who's thousands of years old, just make them 21 or
Just make them
22.
an adult. That's it. I was like, if she was at least an adult, then sure.
And I know that people will say like, well, it's just a movie, it doesn't matter. But I do think it matters because it's like
Yeah,
we
no. But
life
again,
imitates art and art imitates life. And
sure. But I mean, even like, I'm just like, that's what pulled me out of the fantasy.
hmm
I was like, oh, wait, she's a kid. Like, I was like, and it's not even like, oh, well, they didn't really say her age. I'm like, but you know that she's a child.
right.
It's, you don't have to say like how old she is. You know, she's a kid because one, she lives with her parents. She has a bunch, she's the oldest of her siblings. And in all these fantasy movies, anyway, the main characters are always in high school. They're always
They
teenagers.
were actively in high school. They were in school. Like they went to school in one of the scenes. So I'm
So
like,
it's like, what are we, what?
it was a
Yeah.
miss for me. And it
Yeah.
just didn't make sense. And
Nope.
in the scene where they killed him, I think they were trying to make it be like this, like, end game kind of scene, but it was just weird. It
It was really bad.
was corny. The lines were strange. She does this like slow motion, like slice, and
Yes.
she continues to slide after she sliced him. And I was like, what is going on? The scene is so weird.
Yeah. It's just flopped really bad.
And then,
Like,
yeah, go ahead.
no, and even like, because I'm just still thinking about this plot point about the villain,
Yeah.
because I'm like, what they could have done was like they could have shown him like trying to like get her attention, maybe even from like the beginning.
hmm
Maybe instead of having like fantasy dreams about being a princess, she was having nightmares. Like, just give us a little sprinkle
Yeah.
of something so that we're like, oh, that's the guy that was torturing her in the beginning in her nightmare. Or that's why she kept seeing all these scary things. Like, give us something.
Yeah. You can't just throw something huge at us. And like, because there's that, and then there's the whole Teddy being like, I love you thing. I'm like, you can't just say words without
No.
showing us why. And then
Right.
you have Sophie sacrificing herself
Mm-hmm.
and she dies
Well,
and
did she sacrifice herself or did she get hurt?
she jumps in front of
Ah, you're right.
in
See,
front
I
of
told you I
Agatha.
blinked at some point.
And Stephanie said something like, oh, is this gonna be like Tangled? Where her tears,
Right.
or is this
I
gonna
was
be
like,
like a Snow White? Like which one is it gonna be? And
yeah.
then she kisses her on the mouth. And I was like, why?
I was so
I'm like, what's happening? This is not a friend. That's like not a friend thing to do. I don't know why they made that choice. I'm like, you could have kissed her on the forehead. I don't know. I feel like
no,
this.
I was no, and that's what I was saying when we talked about it. Like I was like, oh, they're trying to do the whole true love is not between a romantic interest. It's the love
Yeah.
of friendship, like they always do, or the love of sisters, like they did in
Yes. Frozen.
Frozen.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's like, so I'm like, I was like, so I'm like, to me, if my friend was dying, like if you were dying in my arms, my first thought is like, I'm gonna like embrace you, I'm gonna hold you, and if I am gonna give you a kiss, I would kiss you on the forehead.
Please don't kiss me on the
Like,
mouth if I'm dying in your
no,
arms.
I would not. Don't worry about that. But like, my first thought is not, let me kiss her on the mouth. Like, I'm like, I just feel like you want to hold that person because you're like, dang, they're about to die. Like,
Yeah.
let me just hold them one last time. Like, you know what I mean? And I was just like, this is just so,
Weird, because that's a
why?
romantic gesture. So I'm like, I don't
And they didn't hint that there was any romantic thing between them. If you had
know.
given us a hint, maybe I could give it to you, but they didn't.
No, it just felt so weird. And then she comes back.
And
Um,
then they go back home.
and then they go back home and they try to do this like empowering scene where it's like, I'm choosing my friend. I'm like, first, there's so many questions I have. Why couldn't he just come with you? I think that's my biggest question. Why didn't you just ask him to come? You're like, I must either choose between you and my friend, and I'll never see the other person ever again. I'm like, why would he have to stay here? Why can't he, doesn't he eventually have to go back to the real world anyway?
I mean, I think they, oh, is it? I mean, everything is a fantasy world, but I'm like, but his parents, his dad was King Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, is there, I guess, is his parents within the world of where the school is? Or is it,
Where's
you know what
Camelot?
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like, so I'm like,
I don't
maybe
know.
they're all from whatever universe the school is in because they had to basically be transported through like a portal or something.
Yeah.
They show us like at the end they go through some portal. So I'm like, I don't know.
Right. So yeah, so then there's that with the portal. And the other thing I didn't really understand was like the arrow came through and then the
Mm-hmm.
knife, and they were like, "Oh, but the arrow that Tedros shot came through after her." And I was like, "When?" I'm like, did I miss something?
Right. How long did it how like how many days has it been?
Also,
Because
did you see him shoot an arrow? Because why would he shoot an arrow in after her? If she was the love of his life, why would he try to shoot her? That doesn't make
but
sense.
it had like a note with it though, right?
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I think it had like a note and then it showed like the arrow and then a knife, I think,
Yeah.
which I'm like, well, what is
Who's
this
nice?
duel? I don't know.
Right.
They don't that's the whole thing. It's like one, we never see Teddy with an arrow thing for us to know that it's him because we're only told this by Kate Blanchett at the end.
Right.
So it's like we never see him with an arrow to know that it's him. And then the knife, I was like, is it the guy from the evil school that liked Sophie? Because those are two different weapons. I'm like,
Right.
why would he send both of those?
No, it has to have been somebody else, but why? Like I don't know. It just felt like a dumb way to end the movie because I feel like I was more like, wait, what are we talking about? Like I didn't
Right,
even
because
shoot an arrow.
I guess it was like I'm trying to think maybe it's like they're trying to make it like a segue for another movie,
They must,
which is
yeah,
probably not going to happen because it got really bad reviews. Netflix is probably not wasting any more money on
because it was
this.
bad. It
It
got
was
bad reviews because it was
awful.
bad.
It was awful.
So,
So I'm like, because I was like, this is supposed to be a 6 book series. There's no way they're making another movie after this. I was like, I know they were probably trying to set it up that way, but maybe
which is
no.
sad because I feel like it did have like good aspects to it. Like I love the fairy tale aspect. The
Mm-hmm.
idea of a school. That was the other thing. I felt like it was like Descendants, but also Harry Potter, like a mix
Mm-hmm.
of those two things,
Mm-hmm.
but just like a really bad, like a great value version of both.
Yeah.
Um, I liked the that idea, but I just felt like they made it too like tropey, which is
Mm-hmm.
ironic because they were trying to like overcome tropes, but I was still like,
Right.
it doesn't feel very relatable. And then I mean I like the idea that like I said before, good people have bad in them, bad people have good in them.
Mm-hmm.
But that just didn't have meaning to me because the script was so atrocious and because
Yes.
the characters had no depth. So when they all unified at the end, I was like, I don't care because I don't care about any of these people at
No.
all. So if they're
Mm-mm.
unified or if they're all fighting each other, it doesn't matter to me because I don't care
Yeah.
about them.
Mm-mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, they could have done so much more. Like I was like, I wish they had utilized like their characters better,
Yeah.
especially like the professors. Like we're supposed to like be like, ooh, Charlize Theron, she's cool. Kerry Washington, she's cool. But it's like we didn't really see much of them being like professors or like,
No.
I don't know, being some sort of like guidance to the two main characters. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I don't know. And even like what like Michelle Yao's, is it Yao? Am I saying her last name wrong?
I'm not actually sure. I will keep talking and I'll Google.
Okay.
To last name.
Even like her character, like it's like we only get like little bits and pieces of like what their, I guess, school experience looked like. And I wish we kind of saw more than whatever we were given. And again, a waste of an actor like Lawrence Fishburne. He was in the movie for like 2 seconds. Like, why?
Yeah,
Just to
him
say you had Fishburne in your movie? Like,
and Kate Blanchett, like you said, she literally came in the movie to be a pen, like a
yeah.
disembodied pen voice.
Mm-hmm.
I I can't find like hold on,
Oh, wait, it's fine.
it's not playing. I'm like trying to play the sound. Michelle Yeoh. Michelle Yeoh.
Yo,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
I think I said it like that before. Um, but yeah, like, yeah, they could have, I it just, they could have done more and they could have done better. And
Agreed.
they just didn't.
Yeah, so it's disappointing because I feel like Netflix, I think their movies are bad. Like they have good shows, but their movies are horrible and they need to
Mm-hmm.
rethink the way that they do everything.
The only Netflix movie that I have genuinely like enjoyed is Set It Up. I've watched that movie like
That
multiple
movie is
times.
very cute. I
I
agree.
love that movie.
But because that movie was meant to be like corny and cute,
Mm-hmm.
this one it felt like they were trying to be, and like you said, it makes sense that it was like two men who wrote it. 'Cause I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's probably why it doesn't feel relatable. So I just feel like they're not aware always of the demographic that they're trying to
Yeah.
reach, and they just write these like really bad things, and which is sad because a lot of their shows are really good. Like
Mm-hmm.
Outer Banks or On My Block. Is that a Netflix show? It is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
On My Block, Bridgerton. Like these are great,
Mm-hmm.
great Netflix
Yeah.
originals. Um, but then their movies, I'm like, what's going on? Like who is in charge of what here? Because the creative direction, it's not, it's really not giving, and it's like I said, disappointing
Mm-hmm.
because I love fantasy and I wanted it to be good,
Yeah.
but it was bad, and it was so
Mm-hmm.
long too.
Yeah. It didn't need to be as long as it was.
No, it just felt
Yeah,
like
it
it
was
was trying to do
almost
too
three
much.
hours long.
Yeah. And it's so funny too because like it tried to emulate like female empowerment, but like I think it just once again the fact that it was written by men really puts it into perspective for me because I wasn't empowered. I was like, these are two pick me's, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't care about what happens to either of them
Yep.
at all.
Because like I wanted to root for like Aggie, but I
Yeah,
was just like, she it's just her character isn't giving me enough for me to care.
no. So
Yeah. There
sorry.
you have it, folks. Sorry.
Very different. We felt very differently about the last movie we watched, Look Both Ways.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to give you a disappointing.
I mean, I love a good drag. I mean, and I even said like I like watching bad movies for fun. But like, so at one point I just started laughing at how ridiculous this movie was because I was like, this cannot be real. Like, you
Yeah.
guys really said that? You wrote that and you kept it. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
You sat through like a review process, and you guys were like, "This is
Mm-hmm.
good. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for writing this. This is
Yeah.
great." Yeah. No, I agree. So hopefully we can do something that we enjoy for our next
Yes.
one. Something that we feel even neutrally about, not something that we hate like this.
Yeah.
This is genuinely, like I said, one of the worst movies I have ever seen. It was so
And
bad.
I've seen some pretty bad movies.
So have I.
Like I said, I have genuinely watched bad movies for fun because I was like, this movie is awful, but I'm having a great time. I did not experience the same for this one.
What's the worst like movie you've ever seen? Like genuinely, like the whole movie was really bad. Not in like a funny. haha, like this is so bad, I'm enjoying
Um,
it way, just like it was bad and you hated it and you would never watch it again.
oh my God.
I
See,
feel,
the thing is, I can only think of movies that were bad that I was like, this movie was funny as crap because they really thought they did something here. Um,
I feel like really bad movies I've seen, I didn't watch all the way through because I just stopped watching them. I was like, this is so bad, I
mm,
cannot possibly continue watching it.
I can't I can't really think. One movie though that was bad that I enjoyed was called Triple Dog.
Okay.
That movie, if you know, you know. It had like actors that you would know. It's like Britt Robertson was in it. Janelle Parrish, who played Mona on Pretty Little Liars, was in it.
Hmm.
The guy, I don't know if you ever saw that Nickelodeon movie, Spectacular.
That sounds familiar.
Okay, but the main guy from that movie, did you ever see? You saw the movie Sleepover, right?
Yes, but I don't really remember it. I wasn't like really paying
Okay.
attention when it was on. It was like on in the back of like I was hanging out with people, so I wasn't.
Okay. Well, one of the girls that was in the movie is also in that one.
Hmm.
But it was really bad. It was really bad. It was trying to be this like this drama mystery, but I was dying laughing the entire time because the
Because of how bad
script
it
was
was.
so ridiculous. It was so bad. Me and Amber talk about that movie like to this day because we're like, yo, this movie was so terrible. But one movie that I'm trying to think that I'm like, I can't believe I wasted my time watching.
Yeah, because there are movies that are like really bad, but in a way of
I
like,
definitely have one. I don't even know how I didn't say that the first time.
what?
Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action movie. I, me and M. Night Shyamalan have beef to this day because I was like, I saw it on my birthday.
Oh
It
no.
came out on my birthday, and I loved, and I still love Avatar: The Last Airbender, the series, because it's probably one of the best kids animation shows I've ever seen in my life. Like I'll go back and rewatch it like as an adult because it's
Yeah.
just really good. And I was like, oh, they're making a live action. It's coming on my birthday. So excited. I went and I was like, I can't believe they did that to me. I was literally like, I just, no words. I was like, I can't believe I wasted a movie ticket on this movie. It was awful, awful. I can't, like, awful.
Yeah. I know I've seen it, but I don't remember any of it. I just remember, and I
Right,
never watched Avatar the
exactly.
show, so I
Because
just
it was awful.
vaguely remember like there was like a big floating. That's
Yeah.
and
A
that's
big
what.
floating rock after they did this whole sequence to Earthbend. Yeah, it was awful. I was like, you guys did all of this just for a pebble to come across my screen?
That's
Keep it.
hilarious.
I was so mad.
I'm trying to think of like what the worst movie I've ever seen is. I don't know. I feel like I'd have to think about it because I have seen because like we were talking about Bill and Ted before we got onto the
Hmm.
recording. That movie is like objectively bad, but it's hilarious. Like
Hmm.
it's like late 80s, like Keanu Reeves and Bill Winter, like these just stupid characters. So like everything they say is just so and Keanu Reeves is like really good at playing like idiots. So
Hmm. Hmm.
the whole time he's like, Bill, we have to go and save Napoleon. And it's just like there's something about it that's just like really funny. So we have to watch it. It's dumb.
Yes.
But I'm trying to think of like a movie that I watched and I was I felt that way about Multiverse of Madness. Maybe not the worst movie I've ever seen, but I thought like
Hmm.
that movie was really trash, like after I watched it. But
Mm.
I'm sure that there is another. I probably just have blocked it out of my memory and decided I would never
Right. It's
watch
just
it
not worth
again.
it. Yeah.
It's not there. So I'm gonna think about it. I'll have to come back and be like, I'm gonna ask my sister, like, what's the worst movie that you and I have ever watched? You know a movie that it's like is popular, but I thought was really bad when I watched it. I watched it just because it was popular and Leonardo DiCaprio's in it. Have you ever seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Yeah, I mean, I watched it years ago because I remember it was like one of the first movies that I watched on Netflix when we had like first got Netflix. And
Yeah,
so I watched it like a while ago. But I think with that movie, I think Leonardo did a really good job. He
he
did a
did.
great job acting.
He did.
But that's the only thing about the movie that I like really remember.
I just remember thinking, like, that movie was bad. After I watched it, that was a bad movie. I feel like sometimes really classic movies are bad.
I would agree.
Like, I watched in analyzing film class, what's that movie called? It's super weird. It's from the 60s. It's in black and white. There's a rose. It's called Citizen Kane. Have you ever seen that movie?
No, but that's a movie that I know people are like, will say is like one of the best films ever made. And it's
No.
just like, and
Well,
I
you
know
you
like
watch it
I've
and you let
seen,
me know your thoughts.
I don't want to. Because I've seen like on Twitter, people are like, that movie sucks. Like they're literally like, that movie's boring.
It
It's
is.
not good.
It's such a pretentious movie. That's how I feel about it. I think people who say it's the best movie are people who are pretentious because it's
Hmm.
one of those movies that's full of symbolism that like people debate to this day and it's supposed to be like intellectual and you wonder like does this represent this? Does this represent that? And blah blah blah. And that to me just feels like you don't want the average person to enjoy this movie because you're making it inaccessible. And I
Hmm.
totally understand putting in symbolism because some of my favorite movies have like really good symbolism.
Yeah.
But it just really feels like you're throwing in vague stuff so that because you know no one's ever going to decide on what exactly this
Right.
means, even though it means nothing and contributes
Yep.
nothing to my general well-being or love of film. And so it's just like I remember watching that movie and being like, I don't even understand the plot. Like, and them asking like, what do you think this rose means? And being like, I do not care what this rose.
Yeah, like you can still put a metaphor in a movie and people can understand it. Like there's plenty of movies that have done that. Plenty of films where you're like, oh my gosh, the metaphor of how they use this character with this character, or how the bridge in this scene reflects this. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when you start putting in stuff that you're like, okay, I don't really understand.
That reminds me of a different movie I had to watch for school that was traumatic to watch. Have you ever seen A Clockwork Orange?
No, but
Don't.
I've heard, I don't plan on it. I think Kayla wanted to watch it for Halloween, and I was like, I've heard there's a lot of stuff in there that I don't think we're going to enjoy. And she was like, okay. And I was like, yeah, I don't think we're going to want to watch
There are
this.
explicit rape scenes in that movie, and I don't understand why you would include something like that. One, two, why people enjoy stuff like that. Because I remember it was in a violence class. My professor had been like, if you want to, you can watch this movie because it's like it was related somehow. But I
Hmm.
remember watching it, being like, I don't understand the plot of this movie. Also, what the hell? Like, what is going on?
It's literally just showing some like psychopath going on a rampage.
Yeah, no.
Just what? So we know that he's a psychopath? Like, I don't understand. I don't care.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the second sexual assault scene, I was like, done. That's enough. End movie. I'm not finishing this. This is too
Hmm.
much. So I
Hmm.
hate that movie. That's probably the worst movie I've ever seen. Um, so those are my feelings.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a lot of movies that people are like, this is a classic. And then when you watch it back, you're like, this is also very problematic.
Extremely.
And I don't care or don't want to understand.
And should have been
Sorry.
problematic in the time it was made, too. It shouldn't just be problematic now. This should have always been
Right.
problematic.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of movies are like that. Even if it's not some like Oscar nominated film, like you'll watch old like rom-coms and you're like, hmm, that was a choice.
Right.
So yeah, yeah.
What are
But
some of the best movies you've ever seen to end on a more positive note?
oh, one of my favorite movies of all time is About Time. I've probably said that before on the podcast and to you multiple times.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it. I have to watch it.
Literally one of my favorite movies. Like I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but like there'll be times where like I'll just put it on just because like if I there are times I remember when I would like want to take like a quick nap and I would just be like, what can I put on that I know I've already seen that I can just fall asleep to? And I'm like, About Time. It's just a very wholesome, like I think the way it was written, like as like a romance movie, is just so good. Like the characters feel like real people.
Hmm.
And I think that's what I really liked about it because it was just like I could definitely interact with someone like Donald Gleason's character or Rachel McAdams' character, who I love. Every movie Rachel McAdams does, I'm like, she's amazing. Give her all the awards.
10 out of 10.
Um, and so like I love her character. She's like just a very realistic. like, obviously, there's, like, time travel involved in the movie, so that's not the realistic part, but it's like you don't really care about that part. You're just kind of like it's just a very good, wholesome, feel-good movie. One of the best movies I've seen in the last, like, 10 years. Um, what else? What else? One of my favorites. I have so many.
I
That's
know, I
my
feel like I asked you
problem.
a difficult question. I can tell you 2 of mine. There actually 3 of mine. I feel like one is a very basic answer, but it's an oldie, a classic, and a goodie, I would say. I think Titanic is a great movie. I love that movie. The
Mhm.
score, I feel like there's really good dialogue. The acting is great. So that's one. But then my 2 other, like, kind of favorite movies, one of them, I love the movie Psycho so much
You've told me
because
that, yeah.
I think the dialogue is great. The special effects in one scene are trash, horrible. It's from like 1968 or
Right.
1969.
Yeah.
But I feel like that whoever wrote that dialogue was in their bag. And then Bastille did this mashup of Scrubs by TLC and Angels by the XX, and it's called, I think, No Angels. And so it's like it's weird because they make like No Scrubs like haunting, and then they put in like quotes from Psycho in it, and it's like one of my favorite songs. It's just I'll have to send
Mm.
it to you. It's really great. That's the reason I watched the movie in the first place, was because of that
Mhm.
mashup. I love that movie. And have you ever seen Primal Fear with Ed Norton?
No, but I've heard good things.
That is a good one because Ed Norton is one, in my opinion, like one of the most underrated actors
Oh,
like
for sure. I mean, like, he was
ever.
great in Fight Club. You ever seen Fight Club?
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, he was great in that.
He is in his acting bag in this movie. He's just like a really talented, very like low key
Mhm.
actor. Um,
Yeah.
so that's a good one because it's really like honestly, I think I like both of those because they're really psychological.
Yeah, I love a good psychological thriller.
So yeah,
Ooh.
I don't think those are my only favorites, but those are the top 3.
I'm, like, trying to think. I must have, like, a note somewhere in my phone where I
I also
list,
really liked
like
The Princess Bride when we watched it together. That might be
yes,
up
I will definitely put that
on
in
my
my
list.
top. Mhm. Definitely love that movie for sure. Oh my gosh, I'm like, I know I have a list somewhere because I've just seen too many movies for me to be like,
You're just ready for someone to ask you that question.
yes,
Well, we can revisit this question once we
that's
have
true. We could
better.
make it a whole episode if we really
Should.
wanted to.
And we can think about it
Yes.
and have planned answers. Because I feel like whenever anybody asks me something, I forget everything I've ever watched, seen, heard, learned about. I'm like, I've never seen
Hmm.
any movies, so I don't know how to answer that question.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yes.
okay. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to say to our audience before we wrap up for today?
No, just have a good day, y'all. Enjoy your time,
Just
whatever you're doing, wherever you are watching this.
whatever you're watching or listening to after this, we hope it's good. And if it's bad, you know, it
I
happens.
mean, if you're watching on YouTube, I would love to know what the best movie and the worst movie you've ever seen.
I agree. Please tell us. But yeah, so that's all we got for today. This has been AM and the PM, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.